Today we embrace controversy and we talk about the update 44 Nightblade Cloak changes, okay? I haven't uploaded a video in a month and I figure you guys deserve a video, and this is something we can talk about and make a video about, so we're gonna do that. But also I've gotten like 1,000 comments in both my Discord and on my YouTube videos saying that the update 44 Nightblade changes are gonna kill the class. It's bad now. That's worse than Necromancer. And I just want to talk about it in this video today because some of you guys I feel are overreacting and then others have some pretty valid points that I want to discuss. So to start, let me remind you that this is still week 1 of the PTS and things are not set in stone, okay? These things are going to probably change at some point, and also, no, this is not a video about update 44 in its entirety. This is just focusing on the change that everyone is bugging me about. So yeah, that update 44 video comes later. So what are they doing to Shadowcloak? Well, on the live server, whenever you cast the ability, it costs 4,590 base magic and you go invisible for 3 seconds. When you cloak on the PTS now, it becomes a toggled ability that, while active, will drain 3,240 base magic from you every 2 seconds and also disable your magic recovery until you break the cloak or it gets removed from you. Also, you get a PvE buff that when you activate it, you get 10% more damage towards monsters. So, it's a toggle now. What's the big deal? Well, the community seems to be very torn on this, and I've talked to both sides of the community about this, and people have some good arguments for both. I'm more on the side of this is an okay change, and we've adjusted to worse skill changes in the past. And also Nightblade, the last couple patches, seems to have been the favorite child of ZeniMax, and it's about time that they get a little bit of a nerf for once. On the other side, you have a bunch of people just complaining because they simply don't want to learn how to use a brand new toggleable cloak, but you also have some very reasonable people saying, well, it's a toggle, and the toggle is not doing what it's intended to do, which in the developer's own words is make the skill more accessible. Toggle abilities in this game are the opposite of accessible. They are incredibly painful to manage and try and keep up with, and I think that's where a lot of the trouble that others have with this change is coming from. They're not used to managing toggles, and toggles in this game have just kind of been cringe. I mean, for me, example would be Overload. Overload is incredibly cringe to try and keep up with, and it's also probably the most buggy skill in the game, and it still needs a lot of work done to it to make it an actual usable skill most of the time. But if you can get around its shortcomings, you have an amazing ultimate ability. But it does have a bit of a skill requirement, since managing it and cycling it in and out of your combo is not the easiest thing in the world to do, and it's going to require a little bit of practice and some head knowledge to get right. And it's the same thing with Cloak. This is going to target a lot more of the casual Nightblade player base that kind of just rely on Cloak for, you know, its simplicity and ease of use. You hit the ability, you go invisible for 3 seconds, and that's the end of the story. Now they're adding a bunch of extra steps with a toggle, where now it activates, you have to either toggle it off, break it with an ability, and also while you're doing that, you have to manage your magic, so it's adding more steps to Cloak. This is almost the exact opposite of making a skill more accessible. Adding more steps to an ability to ensure that you can get the result that you want from it is not accessible at all. Instead, this is increasing the skill floor that is required to use this ability, making it much more difficult for an average player to obtain without a little bit of practice and dedication to certain parts of their build to you know, make up for what they're losing by trying to sustain the toggle on this ability. And I am all for adding more skill requirements to certain things in this game, so that way not your average bot can just pick it up and then immediately do well with it, which is what Cloak currently does now. But I can also see the argument for toggles in general because of how bad they work in performance, especially during primetime Cyrodiil. Most of the complaints, if not all the complaints from the new toggleable Cloak, come from the PvP side because of performance. I have this issue all the time with Overload, especially when I'm playing in Cyrodiil, where I activate the ability, it doesn't go off, I activate it again, it goes on, and then it goes off immediately, and I don't get the result I'm looking for, and it's incredibly difficult to manage. Now you're putting that on Cloak, which is an ability that Nightblades need to survive. Yeah, their survivability tool is going to take a hit when the performance of this game is already not very good to begin with. In an incredibly laggy environment like modern day Cyrodiil, having a toggle is a nightmare, especially alongside performance, and you're better off just using an ability that gives you the result that you're looking for with a single button press instead of having to manage the ability by toggling it on, toggling it off, remembering to break it because you're punished if you don't, because it just completely drains all your magic. And sometimes you being not able to toggle it off is not your fault. It's the game's, because, well, performance decided, you know, you want to turn that ability off I'm good. I'm not turning that thing off for you. And then you just proceed to drain all your magic. And you're like, wait, I have no magic. What's going on? Why is Cloak still on? What is this? So, you know, learning how to use it is going to be very, very difficult because some of the errors are not going to be on the player side. They're going to be on the server side. And I can totally understand that argument. So for a lot of people, a toggleable cloak, which is Nightblade's primary way to stay alive on the class, has just become a lot more untrustworthy since you can't really rely on it like you used to in order to get away from people or even set up a combo because of the toggle and you needing to manage it. And that's probably where the majority of their upsetness comes from because, you know, trying to maintain a toggleable ability in a almost barely functioning Cyrodiil is nigh impossible at times, versus I'll just build as a tank so that way I can make up for the fact that I know I'm going to lag, which is why you see everyone running around with 40-50 KHP and holding block all the time because they know the game's not going to work and they account for it in their build. There's also a bunch of other points that you can make about a toggleable cloak, but I just presented the strongest ones here. So to recap, Cloak now requires some skill to use. No more bot picking up Nightblade, putting proc sets on, and then being able to steal your hairline and get away. It's a lot harder for them to do that now with the change to Cloak. And then on the other side, toggleable abilities and very bad performance have never worked well, and they will continue to not work well, especially when performance most nights in PvP is hit or miss. Either the game's gonna work or the game's not gonna work. Either way they decide to go with this change, making it a toggle or reverting the change. I think what's important is that you have the flexibility to adjust to a change like this, whether it goes through or whether it doesn't. We've had to deal with this before, especially pre-update 35, where builds and playstyles would be completely eliminated from the game because of the massive sweeping changes that we'd get every 3 months. It was ridiculous back then. And compared to then and now, this change to Cloak is not going to kill Nightblade at all, and the builds that you play now might require a little bit of tuning, but nothing too dramatic in order to make up for the toggleable Cloak. Me, with my build, I can now perma-cloak with this change. I wasn't able to do this before, but now I can sustain invisibility nearly indefinitely. And on top of that, I may or may not have created my most powerful gank build to date on the PTS. Okay, we're not going to talk about that here. I'll leave that for some other time, but I'm just saying. Listen, I'm just saying. If you're worried about your build getting completely destroyed or whatever in update 44, again, remember, this is still week 1 of the PTS and things can change. And there's always the ability for you to learn how to use a brand new toggleable cloak. Like the biggest example and most simple thing you can do to break the toggle without having to activate it again is start sprinting. Sprinting will break the toggle so you don't have to press the button again. Okay, then all you gotta do after that is go back into crouch and you're fine. Now, of course, it would not be week 1 of the PTS without a few bugs for this ability. The biggest thing that I've noticed is the hit registry with this skill. When you toggle it on and someone's already thrown an attack at you, sometimes it'll pull you out of stealth, sometimes it won't. It's just really, really inconsistent. I think it needs a little bit of tuning. It is still week 1, so things are probably definitely gonna change. But yeah, this change is not gonna kill Nightblade, not at all. The class is still phenomenal in almost every aspect. Do I think Cloak needs to become a toggleable ability? At some point, yes. I don't know if this patch is the best time to introduce it, especially as performance continues to get worse each and every single update. Cloak as it is on the live server is just fine, and adding a toggle to it, especially when toggles and performance mix as well as gasoline in an open flame, doesn't seem like the best idea right now because there's a couple other issues that definitely need to be addressed and worked on first. But whether they go through with a toggleable cloak or they revert the change, it doesn't really matter because I'm still going to be getting very big funny numbers above people's heads when I hit them with my Nightblade. So if you want to be there for those, click the subscribe button. I mean, you don't have to, but if you're going to click the subscribe button, you might as well click the bell button too, so that way you can be notified of when I go and I stream live, because I stream live here on YouTube, and you're more than welcome to come hang out with us while we do very strange things in the game. I wouldn't worry about the cloak changes too much. It's not really that big of a deal. It goes through, it's going to be difficult to maintain and lag, but it's nothing you can't learn how to do. It doesn't go through, you don't gotta worry. Nightblade's still gonna be very, very powerful, and I got some builds in the works. So yeah, thank you gamers for hanging out with me in this video and stuff, and let me know your thoughts about it in the comments. I know there's a lot of opinions about it, and I just guess let your thoughts be free in the comments, okay? And yeah, have a good night.